Hey guys, welcome back. My name's T, and today we're going to be looking at some embarrassing mistakes that we all make on a day-to-day basis, like going to the chemist and asking for your chronic medication instead of your chronic medication, which seems to happen to pharmacist Duncan Null very often. So I've got a list of 10 phrases or sayings that we've been mucking up every day. And before I get into the list though, I have to say that this isn't a bash at anybody who might be speaking English as a second language. These are actually terms that English-speaking people are messing up on a day-to-day. So, without further ado, let's jump into the list. Number 1. Yep, you caught me. First mistake has been made, and that is adieu. This is a mistake that's often made by entertainers and most public speakers, is they find themselves saying without further adieu, which is incorrect because some of you might know that the word adieu is actually a French word meaning goodbye. So when you say without further adieu, you're basically saying without any more goodbyes, which makes no sense. The word you really want to be using is the word adieu, which first of all is more simple, and what it basically means is adieu is what is currently being done now. So when you say without further ado, you're basically saying let's move on from whatever is being done now, the ceremony or general fuss. So there we go, first lesson learnt. On to number 2.
Oh my God, Becky, you had to be there. I was literally dying.
Yes, number 2 is the word literally, which is almost always used incorrectly, like literally. But the reason we make this mistake is because we use the word literally as an intensifier for figurative statements, much the same way as we do, or as we use the word really. So the marketing department really dropped the ball this weekend. Well, they didn't really drop the ball, but the word really in this case intensifies the situation a little bit, rather than just saying the marketing department dropped the ball. Now, if you're looking at the word literally, by definition, it's relatable to truth or actuality. So if you say, I literally died laughing, that is first of all incorrect and also untrue, unless you did literally die laughing, which in that case probably shouldn't be making fun of you. But then again, at least you died happy. Number 3. This is the battle between utmost and utmost. Now, I'll give you the fact that they sound very similar, but their meanings are very different. If we start with utmost, this is an uncommon variant of the adjective uppermost, which by definition means the higher up or the furthest up. Basically, if I use it in an example, I would say, my office is on the uppermost or upmost level of the building. Utmost, on the other hand, is what we all actually mean to say, as in, I'll try my utmost to be there on time. Whether I make it or not is very different. Utmost basically indicates a level of urgency or intensity rather than a level of height or, levels. Number 4, for all intensive purposes, or correctly put, for all intents and purposes. Now, I'll tell you off the bat that for all intensive purposes does not exist. Don't even bother saying it, throw it away. The original sentence actually used to be to all intents, constructions and purposes, and this stems from 16th century English. It was popularized by American English to what we have today, which is for all intents and purposes. Now, if you wanted to use it in a sentence, you could say, you see these 2 studio lights here that I've put up? Transform this mundane office into, for all intents and purposes, a functional studio. So if you're like me and you have a hard time grasping the concept, you can substitute out that whole long phrase for simply normal words like basically or effectively. Your new sentence will be something like this. You see these 2 office lights here? Well, they transform this office, mundane office, into essentially a functioning studio, or basically a functioning studio. So you can role play. Don't role play. You can... Number 5. I'll revert back to you at soonest. Now this one's wrong for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's redundant. It's like saying I reversed down my driveway backwards. You've already given us that information in the first part of the sentence, so repeating it in the second half is kind of pointless. To understand the second reason why it's wrong, you have to understand the literal meaning of the word revert. See what I did there? Literal. By definition, the word revert means to return to a previous state, practice, or topic. So let's revert to page 2. meaning we've probably gone past to a different page, but we'll go back to page 2. So by using the word revert as a synonym for the word reply, you're not really doing yourself any justice. Now, I took a look around the internet because I found this interesting, and it looks like the error, or this particular error, originated from India, so in Indian English, and for some reason has spread around the world and is now common practice and somewhat acceptable. But it's wrong. So I'm going to hit you with number 6. Number 6 is on tenterhooks. Now, I'll admit, I never hear this, and I don't know anyone in my immediate circle who does use this. But to let you know, if you're on tenterhooks, it means you're waiting with tension or anxiety, almost waiting for something to happen. So, like when the president comes and says he's going to make an announcement at 8:30, the entire nation is on tenterhooks. Tenterhooks kind of sounds like it was made up. Well, that's because we don't use that sort of thing anymore. Tenterhooks were used to hook cloth around a tenter, which is sort of like a wooden frame that will hold cloth stretched. So if you wanted to dry it out evenly or prevent a piece of cloth from shrinking, you would put it on a tenter with tenterhooks. Now, tender, meaning gentle or soft, would be a terrible hook. Like tender hooks would be awful. You couldn't hang anything on tender hooks. And if you had to look at them figuratively, if you were hanging on tender hooks, that would just mean you were waiting around softly or gently. That doesn't mean anything. Number 7. This is the battle between slither and sliver. Now, no great explanations needed. Slither is something that snakes do to get from point A to point B. This is because Eve ate the apple in the Garden of Eden and then God came down and took its legs away. I'm changing the topic. But slither is something that snakes do. Sliver is a little narrow or thin piece of something cut off a larger piece. So a sliver of steak. Sliver of steak or sliver of cheese. Now that I'm here trying to say this a couple of times over, it is a little more tricky than one would think, but just keep that consciously in your mind. Slither snakes, sliver steaks. Number 8. Now keep it in a Pacific drawer. Yeah, on the left. This next one hurts my heart that we have to talk about it, but apparently there are still people out there who are confusing the two. To clarify, specific is identified, clearly marked or defined. So there's a specific way to open my car door, or we're headed in a specific direction, as opposed to Pacific, which is only the largest ocean on this planet, bound by the continents of Asia and Australia on the east and the Americas on the right. Not to mention with a surface area of 165,250,000 square kilometers, I think it would be pretty hard to find something specific in the Pacific. But really it would be. Ask anyone who's been lost at sea. Number 9. To emphasize how alike two people are, we often use the term splitting image, which, overheard incorrectly, is splitting image, but kind of makes a little bit of sense. The original splitting image was said to be spit and image, which dates back to yonks and yonks ago. But there are a couple of theories as to how this came to be. The first theory is the biblical theory. They say that when God created Adam, he made him with sand and spit in his likeness. Now, I scoured around. The only sources that I could find, or most of the sources that I found, say that God created Adam from mud and then blew life into him, or sand and blew life into him. So the spit part is missing. Another theory is that two people are so alike that the spit in their mouths is actually the same. Bit gross. Another one is that two people are so alike, it's like the one spat out the other one, which is, weird, I guess. But this is actually backed up by a French saying, and the French saying is "C'est est son péri." "C'est est son péri tout cache," which basically translates to is "he is his father spat out," which is great imagery. It sounds kind of myth. The last of the theories is that the word spit is actually a shortened version of the word spirit. So therefore, if two people are very alike, they are the spit and image, as in spirit and image, which basically, in long story, translates to the embodiment. You're so alike, you're like mind, body, soul, physically, all the same. But it's up for debate because in my book, splitting image kind of works as a saying. So, Use it, don't use it, but just know at the end of the day, it's wrong. Number 10. Now this one is pretty simple and kind of self-explanatory. A lot of us are running around saying first come, first serve, which if you're saying that implies that if you were, say, at a buffet and the rules applied, you would rush to get there first and then it would have to serve everybody who came after you, which would suck, especially at a buffet. Now to get this right, all you have to say, or all you have to do is add a D to the end of the sentence. So it turns into first come, first served, which is what you're trying to say, and hopefully, well, I'm assuming is what you mean, because that takes you from being the hungry soul who has to fill up other people's plates to the champion on the other side with an empty plate who gets to demand what they want. So, those are our 10. Well, top 10 from our Facebook post. Of course, there were a lot more that I couldn't get to, like there's no such thing as sequence on a dress, or why could've and would've is very, very wrong, and of course the age-old South African argument of whether it's zinc or sink. We might have to take those up on another video, but if you like this video, share it with your friends and family and maybe your colleagues if they're buggering up at the office, and if you enjoyed the content, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more content like this from this channel. But for now, I'm going to be off, so I'll bid you adieu. See what I did? Adieu. French for goodbye.
No, man.